everyone, I'm Tanya, and I'm a 2024 to 25 Girl Up USA Youth Advisor based in Orange County, California, so just an hour south of here. I'm so excited to welcome all of you to SoCal, and I can't wait to kick off our first fireside chat focused on menstrual hygiene and period tips. This topic is so important to me because I often see Girl Up as a community of girl leaders. And from a larger perspective, what connects us all of us women here, apart from our passion for social change, is our period. Most of us in this room are around or have reached the age where we begin our menstrual cycles. As adolescents, understanding our health is important to feel confident about how to care for our own bodies. Personally, Girl Up has inspired me to delve deeper into women's health. Through my experiences volunteering in the labor and delivery unit of a local hospital and shadowing a gynecologist in her clinic, I've been exposed to the unique nature of women's health. And I now recognize that a woman's health in particular is so closely intertwined to her education, her career, and her future. I believe advocating for girls to take charge of their health and their bodies is essential to helping them navigate their futures. And I'm passionate about spreading awareness about women's health issues starting with menstruation today. Our session is titled, Your Best Period, Transform Your Life with These Period Tips. To introduce our period tips and tricks expert, I am excited to welcome Worley onto the stage today.
T-shirt, by the way, just so we're clear.
Lauren is a born and raised Ohioan and a professional communicator. A graduate of Kent State University's School of Journalism, she has 20 years of experience in political and government campaigns, policymaking, and communications at the local, state, and national levels. She currently serves as the Communications Director at Tampax under P&G, Procter & Gamble. She has previously led the P&G global newsroom, delivering content across internal and external channels, including the company's website and social media platforms. I am so inspired by her passion for women's health and enthusiasm when it comes to educating and empowering young people about menstruation. So we can get started soon. Awesome.
Thank you. Who is so excited to talk about their period at 9 in the morning? Yes? Yeah? You ready? No? Okay. Well, we'll make you excited by the end of this, right? Yes.
Press the button.
I'm so not used to a microphone. Is this better? Okay, so we're all excited to talk about our periods at 9 in the morning. Yes? Yes. All right, great, awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us, Lauren. So there are obviously a lot of myths and misconceptions when it comes to the period and the safety of period products. So answer this one for me. Is it true or false that period products are tested with real blood?
Absolutely true. So you might have seen, anyone seen TikToks online saying, oh, they only tested with that blue fluid? For years, it was only socially acceptable to have menstrual product advertising using that blue fluid that we all know is not what happens when we're on our period. It wasn't until, now this will seem ancient to you guys, but it wasn't until like 1985, the first time someone said period on TV. Does anyone know who said it? Courtney Cox, and you know who she said it for? Tampax, yes. And so like, you know, that was actually groundbreaking at the time. No one had ever like said period while they're selling menstrual products, which is just crazy, right? So the good news, so a lot of people because of this have a little bit of, you know, concern or misinformation. So we use real blood. Are we allowed to get gross? Everyone's like, yeah? All right, we're good. All right, if you get woozy, raise your hand. I don't want anybody to pass it out here. We've tested this with 10,000 women. The way we've tested it is these women use the menstrual products in either a pad or a tampon, and then they freeze it and send it back to us. And we actually test it to make sure that it's as effective as possible. So whatever you're like, so it's the frozen samples. Then there's also, we use a synthetic fluid that is exactly as viscous as your menstrual fluid, because we know it's not just like blood in there, it's kind of like some other stuff too. So it's the same type of material, but it's not, we don't use actual menstrual fluid that we collected from. That would be really interesting, by the way, if everyone just gather up, we'll pour it into this one bucket, right? So those are two major ways that we test them, and that testing is ongoing, because what we are learning is, and you may have seen this recently, girls are getting their periods younger and younger. Like the average age used to be 12, now it's 11 and a half. We know girls start their periods as early as 8. So there's things that we're learning about periods even as we go. Here's the story.
That's good to know. I think learning about testing and all that is important, especially since we're using these products every month. That's good to hear. And so the next question, a lot of young girls, including myself, often feel hesitant to use tampons. So I have a quick story. My first time using a tampon was actually during a family vacation in Cancun.
Of course.
And my mom had never used one, and then my cousin And we even had to go to this tutorial from a YouTube channel called Dr. Kathy at Your Cervix, some like random tutorial. And after
That's super clever, and I wish I thought of it.
yeah, it wasn't too helpful though. So after a couple of hours and even 30 minutes of struggling in this stuffy beachside bathroom trying to insert this little tampon in, I inserted it incorrectly and nearly passed out due to that discomfort. Personally, tampons didn't work too well for me, but I would really like to try using one again. So my question is, are tampons safe to use?
They're absolutely safe to use. I'm sorry that you shared this, by the way. I won't make anyone raise their hand if that is not something happened to them, but your period starting on vacation, awful. And then having to have people like in a somewhat public setting trying to explain to you how to use a tampon, I can be like, no, it's the worst. So, I'm glad you're going to get OBGYN anyway. You can get to people before they reach that level. So tampons are super safe to use from your first period on. But most girls don't use them that early because your flow is not regular, right? Like when you first get your period, sometimes it's usually kind of light, and it doesn't always come every month. Like it might be a little bit stretched between. And so because of that, it's like a little harder to get used to it. Because wait, might not be good tampon. Can we like do this right now?
Yeah.
All right. Let's do it. So here we go. I'm gonna I'll stand up here so I can. Yeah. All right. I've never done this publicly before, so let's hope I get this right. All right, so here's a nice Tampax Pearl tampon. This is a regular, so this would be like if it was like your regular flow. So I'm gonna open it up, hopefully super quietly, so you're really discreet in the bathroom that you're in right now. And the way that Tampax tampons are designed is that they actually expand widthwise inside you, right? So because my bag is not the same size as your bag, it's the same size as your bag. So it's like the same, like this is all the way across there. But what's super interesting is your vagina is also not a circle. It's actually flat like a silver bag, right? Yeah. So if you think of a sleeping bag, and that now all of a sudden you're starting to be like, oh, this is really different than maybe what you might have expected when you inserted it the first time. Other thing you should know is that like your vagina is kind of at an angle too. So you're not like sticking this thing straight up inside you. You're actually kind of going like more like if this was your vagina, like more at an angle like this. So imagine that. But like you said, like Tanya, one of the reasons can be uncomfortable is you don't use the right absorbency for your period. When you remove it, it can hurt a little bit. Does that happen to anybody? And you're like, you have just a little bit of menstrual fluid on it, and you're like, that's super uncomfortable. So you might need to like go to a smaller size, like a light, or a pad might be more better, depending on you might be in like a wider territory. Anyway, I promised Ezzy I'd do this really quickly. She wanted to know too. So with a pearl, I see it's got nice little curved tips here, not like the cardboard ones. The cardboard ones are super cringe because the cardboard's a little awkward. They're pretty cringe. So you put your fingers right here on the grip, and we call it tip to grip. So you like put your finger at the end. Remember I said you're a little bit at an angle, which is why it's super easier to usually do it on the toilet. And then you just push the applicator up. This is super important because I've seen this on the internet. You don't put the whole thing inside. Just the cotton rayon part, okay? And we're laughing, but people do this all the time. It also goes inside you. Have you guys seen the hot dog TikTok? I won't get into it, but anyway, it goes inside you. A gal didn't know that it went inside her. It just kind of had it in her labia, and that I know. So it leaked, right? So anyway, once you pull it out, what do you notice about this? This super long string, right? You've got to insert it. It feels weird at first. You got to insert it until the place where you can't feel it. It won't get lost inside you. Your cervix is there. Thanks, Dr. Kathy. At your cervix. It can't get lost inside you. And you see you get this super long, braid that's going to be able to pull out. If it's uncomfortable, it's probably because you haven't inserted it all the way. And it's hard to insert it the second time. You can see I've kind of used this applicator already, right? So you probably need to use a second one. And just insert it until you're like, oh, that feels comfortable. And then tampons are designed, you can wear them up to 8 hours. Now I'm not a medical doctor, I'm saying wear it 8 hours. It always depends on your flow. But if you're out and all that kind of stuff, and then you just use this really good grip to remove it, and it's gonna, and then I always just wrap it up in some toilet paper and put it in the trash can there. You could probably also, if you were super good at it, you could stick it back in the wrapper, but I'm not gonna go over it. So that's your 10-minute tutorial on how to use a tampon and all other parts of your body too. I've never done this so publicly before, so thank you for making that way less awkward.
Thank you, Lauren. I think we all needed that.
These are the things you learn when you sell tampons for babies. It's really exciting.
Great. Okay, so our next question is, many people complain that pads and tampons are getting smaller and are leaking more. Is this true, and how do you know if your pad or tampon is really working?
So tampons are considered a class 2 medical device, just like a hearing aid, believe it or not. They're actually regulated by the FDA, and that's because we just talked about it's actually inserted inside you. So all of these mean, if you like had a box of Tampax or any tampons in front of you right now, on the side of the box, it says how absorbent it is in terms of grams. So size can get a little misleading. It's actually how much the tampon absorbs. So if you're on your period, I'll speak about myself. So usually first day of my period, I'm using like a super, maybe a super plus size, and I'm changing my tampon like maybe every 2 to 3 hours or so. And then like the last couple days of my period, maybe I use a light, maybe I use like a pad or something, because it usually kind of like tails off. The reason it's important to pay attention to that is because your period might get, like, especially as you're young, your period's still like sorting itself out. But if you know, oh, I always use a couple of supers and then it goes light, and then all of a sudden you need super for like 4 or 5 days, maybe longer, and that's how you know if you're actually bleeding more. Because, well, it comes every month, and yet I'm 45, guys, it still surprises me every month. I'm like, oh, there's my period. Like I didn't know it was coming. Like for the past 30 years. So like, so that's a really important reason to help keep track of yourself. And you know, Tanya and I had a chance to talk about this on the phone the other day. The reason this is so important, and the reason I came from Cincinnati to LA to talk about this, is your whole theme is like breath. I love what you guys said, my mental well-being is crucial to my activism. Like, if I've learned anything, it's that my health is what allows me to be my full self and bring that to the world. And sometimes we talk, like your period really can set you back. Like, you get cramps, you get headaches, and all that kind of stuff. But if you know that you take care of yourself and you know it's coming, it gives you that confidence, right? You're like, okay, well maybe this isn't comfortable today, but at least I know I'm not probably going to bleed out in my white jeans on stage, right? Like, which has probably happened, if it hasn't happened, it's your nightmare, right? So that's why I really wanted to make sure that you guys, you know, have that familiarity. And the other thing Tanya and I talked about is, you know, this is kind of, when you get your period, it's kind of the first time you're really thinking about your health in that way, like all the intricacies of all the things going on inside. So like, just as you're in tune with that external world that you're trying to, you know, advocate and change and make big changes out there, really strive to be in tune with your personal body too, so you can get ahead of, and it's not just your period, it's migraines, it's tummy aches, it's, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? Like, so being in tune with yourself helps with all that.
Thank you. And you said that when you look at check period products, you can find the absorbency on the side.
On the side, so it'll say measuring grams. Who measures their menstrual flow in grams? I don't, but the FDA does. So like it'll say like super plus is 6 grams, and then it like takes you on down. So you can start to be like, I had a really heavy flow, and that was like, you know, the tampon was full in like an hour. The other thing great, this is my one little Tampax ad. Tampax has like this inverted braid, and the difference is that the braid actually catches fluid too. So you'll start to see that, but it won't like leak out, which also is like, oh, I need to change my tampon now. It's like a good, like if you have gone to the restroom, and it's like a good reminder. Because with some of you guys still, who going back to high school, especially like a few guys going back to high school like this fall, yeah? You know, you don't get to go to the bathroom on your own schedule. So like that's really important to know, like, oh, should I change this like period or next period?
That's good to know. Yeah, and I think especially as young girls, our periods, like you said, come so inconsistently, sometimes like weeks apart or for weeks at a time. So how can people understand their flow and body better?
Yeah, I'm not advocating for any, like we have Tampax and always has an app you can use. I'm not saying go put all your like medical information in an app that you don't know about and make that judgment for yourself. But I use like the health app on my iPhone just to like when my period starts, and then I track the symptoms, like did I have a migraine that day, or did I have cramps that day, or like I was super tired, or I did something's head off, or like, you know, all those things. And then that helps me start to be like, why am I in a bad, is this happening to anybody? You're like, why am I in such a bad mood? And the next day you're like, oh, this happens to me for 30 years, guys. I'm not that. You're like, oh, I'm so angry today. And I'm like, oh, that's bad. So you can go to tampax.com and you'll find our app if that's interesting to you. And even if you keep like your own like journal, you just write it down. Like you don't have to put it on the internet or in the app. I think that'll start to help you like figure out, okay, how often do I get my periods? Are they coming a lot? And if they're coming really frequently, that's something you'll probably want to talk to like a trusted adult or your doctor with, right? Like, because that might be a sign of like something. Again, I'm not a doctor, but if they're not coming about that every 30 days, 27 to 30 days or so, and they're longer than a week, that's probably a sign that maybe is something I should ask a doctor about.
Yeah, and I think what we said before about how connected this theme of rest, a lot of times our periods come consistently, and we have like exams, stressful things going on in our lives. So
yeah, that's like literally happened to you too.
Yeah, so I was just talking about that. So yeah, we all have stress in high school, and I think it's important to keep track of menstrual health too. Anyway, so I've really enjoyed our conversation so far, Lauren, and I've learned so much from you, and I wish we could keep going, but our time is coming to an end.
And keep showing us this one.
Yeah. So my last question for you is, when you were our age, did you imagine wanting to grow up and sell tampons?
Yes, that was my dream. It was my dream my whole life. And when I turned 10, I dressed up as a tampon for Halloween. Good, you guys laughed.
Yeah,
you're like, we knew this was happening. No, that was not, I didn't aspire to be a communications director for Tampax. When I was in college, there was a show on TV called The West Wing. Has anyone ever seen that? Okay. You seen it? Yes? Okay, great. Okay, all right. Some of you are probably, is anyone out here CJ Craig? CJ Craig is the president's press secretary. Is that you? Okay, that was me a long time ago. And I was like, how do you become the press secretary of the president? I had not quite figured that part out yet. But I knew that that was what I wanted to do. And I knew I'd studied journalism, but there's a big difference between, for me, there's a big difference between like writing a story about people filling a pothole and then being in a position to be like, here's a pothole, you should go fill it. And like, you guys will find that journey for yourself because there's a really important role for like journalists in the world, obviously, and news coverage. But for me, I wanted to be part of that solution. So, like, by the way, there's no roadmap for this stuff. I just started volunteering for campaigns. People needed someone. I was like, sure. I worked at the State House. I worked for the governor. Like, I just found my way. And then eventually I found my way to NASA. I was the press secretary there for 4.5 years. And where this all comes together, Tanya, is, has anyone heard the Sally Ride 100 tampons in space story?
Yes.
Just, okay, a few months. Good. Just, you don't have to answer this. So Sally Ride was the first American woman to go to space. Sometimes people, and I'm not, it was a long time, it was ancient history. 85, by the way, 86 back when Courtney Cox was just first used the word period. So up until that point, there had only been one other uterus in space before. Which is kind of funny to think about. So they really didn't know how her body was going to react in space. But for reasons I can't explain to you today, they decided to send 100 tampons with her to space. Which I'm here to say, if Sally Ride needed 100 tampons in 7 days, she should not be going to space. I think, I'm not a scientist or a nurse or a doctor, but I think I can safely make that presumption. So, where that connects like my interest in science and journalism and comes to life with like what I get to do every day, which is talk to people like you about taking charge of your health. It's really super important to me. Like, if you took nothing away from Tanya's conversation, that like that investment in yourself and getting to be as in tune with your body and learning about your body is so important to the advocacy work that you all do. So, so I guess I did make a dream to sell tampons my whole life. I just didn't know that's what I was going to end up doing. But it's really fun, and you know, it's a funny thing to do too. It's kind of, it gets people off guard when you tell them you sell tampons.
Well, I think your tampon tutorial is that going to be the highlight.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Lauren. You truly are an inspiration for all of us, and your perspective about treating women's health as a culture that affects everyone is something that I'll take with me as I continue my journey as a real leader. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.